Hello and welcome to Pantheon Tea. So we've got a lot to get through. And tonight's topic is going to be more or less all about, should creators even want to be Webtoon originals? Like, is that even a viable path anymore? And what's kind of interesting about this story, I think, is I really feel like a lot of us have glorified webtoons in the sense of like it is the end all be all for a creator like that's making a webcomic. Like if you're not working with webtoons, then are you really being successful? And I think like certain creators, like we think of Lore Olympus, we think of Unordinary, True Beauty, like these big powerhouse comics that are getting like millions of views every episode, that are like have these huge fan bases. Like we see Lore Olympus getting award after award after award after award, and I feel like it makes it where creators kind of look at it the way like actors look at becoming a star in Hollywood. Like if I can just make it, if I can just shoot my shot, then I will have finally arrived. Like I'll be able to do this full time. I'll be able to do this, you know, like not necessarily just as a creator, but like for that particular story, but you'll be able to make like a lifetime objective complete. So it's kind of like, what's the balance? Like, is being a webtoon creator the end all be all? Like once you've made it, you're successful? Or is it just something that's a tool that we should use, and if we become successful, then we're successful? Hello, Adagong. Of course, I wanted to give you a shout out. Adagong was here for the pre-discussion. We always get on and chat for 10 minutes before the stream actually starts. So if you guys ever want to come and just chill for a minute, then, you know, you can jump on then. Also, what are you guys drinking tonight? I am very hyped, so I decided to kind of energize myself and maybe give myself even more a little bit of the loose lip syndrome. So I'm having some sangria. And if you don't know what sangria is, then obviously you're too young. So as you can see, what we're going to be really looking at is Reddit and people who've posted about their experience on it, posted about not just Webtoon original creators, but people in general, and how they feel about either being a Webtoon original creator or just being a creator in general. Adagong said that they are drinking water, but they're not sure about the alcohol. Yeah, no alcohol, please. Like, if you're underage, don't do that. So anyway, jumping back to our story, let's go ahead and move forward because, again, we got a lot to get through. So let's kind of just go over a little bit before we jump into it. So basically, I just want to say, remember that this is a little bit of a disclaimer, but anything that I say in this is my opinion. And although I try to research, I try to make sure that whatever I'm telling you guys is informed to a certain degree, it is still laced with my opinion. So unless I'm stating something as a fact, which I will give you a reference to, that this person said this or this is known to be this, then just take it as an opinion. So let's just go ahead and start with the big question. Do I want to be a Webtoon original creator? And let me just tell you guys, for me, so we're talking about me personally, which you guys can answer this in the chat yourself. I do not want to be a Webtoon original. I feel that being a Webtoon original is so much work, and for stories that I want to tell, like my magnum opus, and it's not even a story that I've shared with you guys, or even the title or any details or anything. Like, I'm sure you're all familiar with Frostbite at this point, but My magnum opus, I feel like, would be 2,000 to 3,000 chapters. Like, it would be multiple books, multiple volumes. Like, it would have a lot going on with it. And so I feel that if I was stuck being a Webtoon original creator, like, it would take me my entire life to tell that story. And not necessarily because of just the time constraints, but I feel like webtoons are slowly paced. So like what I could write, so let's say I'm writing a novel. So like, let's say I'm writing a novel and I write one chapter. I feel like that one chapter would be done within a week. Let's say like I was doing it full time. I could finish one chapter in an entire week. And then let's say to follow that up, comparing it to a webtoon, I feel like that chapter, the written chapter, would be broken up probably into like 3 to 4 different webtoon episodes. So I wouldn't even be able to tell a full chapter of my story within a month. And so that kind of makes me hesitant to do any sort of long form content with Webtoons. Now, if Webtoons was like, hey, we would love to work with you and we would love to do maybe like 10 to 15 episode story with you, that would be something I would consider. I don't know if I would still say yes, just because after doing Pinnacle Roofing, that one episode took me like 3 weeks to do. And I mean, given I had other things going on, work, personal stuff. And so, you know, being the fact that I wouldn't have to do that per se, then it's kind of like, okay, well, maybe I could do something like that. So I think it boils down to, what does the contract say? And I know we've talked about contracts before, but I feel like that's really important. Like, what's your minimum panels? What do they expect from you weekly? And then how much are they paying you? Like, is it a flat fee? Is it hourly? Like, how is this working? And then once I have all of that information from them, then I need to look at my bills. So everybody's bill situation is different, which we'll get more into that later. But I'm just like, someone who's living at home with their parents versus someone who's living at home by themselves, the living cost is drastically different. Your parents might take care of you, take care of your bills for a majority of things, but your living costs on a loan, you're paying for everything. And so let's say you're picked up at 18. And you're like, okay, great. I have a full-time job now. I'm going to pursue becoming a Webtoon Original Creator. And then you realize that you don't have enough money to move out. And all you wanted, like 2 of your big things when you turned 18 was you wanted to move out and become a Webtoon Original. Well, you can't do both. So then what about the workload? Is it worth working 80, let's say 70, okay, let's say 50 to 80 hours a week. And I just want you to calculate how much time you actually have in the week to work. So a normal person's work week is 5 days a week, 40 hours a week. So I'm just saying here, do you have enough time to work 80 hours a week? Is that something you want to do? Do you want no personal life? And then let's say you decide to sign on with your magnum opus or with a long form story, and then you realize that you can't move forward. How do you think Webtoons will feel if you decide to quit in the middle of telling your story? Do you think that they're cool with it, or do you think that they're going to have an issue with it? Oh, hello, Taylor. She said, just got my lashes done and it's time to watch you serve, bestie. Yes. Oh, man. Total serve here. Serve. So let's pull it up. So we're going to be heading over to Reddit, and basically I'm going to share with you guys 4 different Reddit, I don't know what to call them, links, articles, Reddit forums, whatever you want to call it. We're going to be looking at different portions of it. Some of them will be comments, some of it will be the main thing that the person is saying. It just kind of boils down to what makes the most sense. And so we'll be swapping in between the PowerPoint and the link to the Reddit post, which all of the Reddit posts that we'll be referencing are in the description below. So if there's something that you specifically find interesting or that you want to read and look at, then just remember that it's down below. All right, so let's end the slideshow here, and we are going to jump over to our Reddit post. Let me enlarge. So we're going to be starting with this one. And the reason I felt that this one was probably one of the best ones to put as our first article is because it has a lot of useful information. And I want you to keep in mind that this article is specific to this creator, which means that they might not have the same contract for a lot of other creators. So just keep that in mind. So the title of this article is Webtoon Originals Creator Here. What you need to know about the $800 per episode fee. Now, hearing that in of itself, $800 per episode, that means the moment you turn in your episode, you get $800. That sounds really good. This creator went into breaking down exactly what's going on with this. So they say, this is a throwaway account because I don't want Webtoons after me. As an original creator, I want to speak out. I will tell you details. If they remove this thread, that's what they're called, threads. I knew it was something. So be it. I saw the other posts talking about Webtoon Original Creators' wages and some of the comments in it. There was one big misunderstanding, and I want to speak about it because as we creators enter into this uphill battle with Webtoon about fair wages, we will need all of your support here. We cannot be divided among ourselves. So I think they're talking about readers, Canvas, and other originals. Just throwing that out as my personal opinion. $800 per episode is not bad. So apparently somebody quoted that to this person. Quite a few comments had this stance, and I want to give more insight into this and why it is not a living wage at all. So this is where we get into the breakdown, the actual tea of this, okay? So they said my series was signed at that rate, $800 per episode. But what am I getting actually? First, I spent 4 months talking with our editors to figure out the outline for the whole season, writing draft after drafts of story ideas, story beats for the whole 50 episode season, countless emails, notes from editors, meetings. During the same time, also doing character designs, environment designs, promotional banners for launch, etc. This whole 4-month pre-production process easily took up 900 plus hours, but I did not count them. Why? Because it was not paid. None. I only got paid from that $800 per episode fee. So let's just pause right there. This person, now let's say they're being dramatic and they're saying that, 900 plus hours. They got paid for no hours. There was no production fee amount paid to them. So for 4 months, now mind you, let's say you're living on your own. For 4 months, you would have gotten no money to pay your bills. None. Which, let me just say this. A lot of companies like that you owe money to, like bill-wise and whatnot, they'll let you slide on like missing maybe 2 payments. On that 3rd payment, you're getting a notice or they're shutting off the service. And some places only let you miss 1 payment. So unless you have an abundant amount of savings, then you're kind of screwed, to be honest. Which means either you need to work another job, which we're going to get into it. Are you even able to work another job and do Webtoons at the same time? We know a lot of people, well, I shouldn't say we know, but I know a lot of people that have 2 jobs and live a comfortable life. But is that realistic as a Webtoon creator to work an 80-hour week and then another 40-hour job? That's 120 hours a week. And so if you have the time, calculate how much time an average person might have in a day, and then you'll see that 80 hours is kind of the max that someone has to spend on something. So let's continue reading. Once production starts, it only gets harder. Every week I spend around 70 hours to complete the episode. The minimum requirement is 40 panels. A lot of you here are Webtoon makers yourself. You must know how much hard work it is to produce 40 panels a week. The same time, I was also drawing storyboards plus writing for the next few episodes to get approval from the editor. All the notes and emailing. I know so many creators who work 80 plus hours each week. To put all this into perspective, $800 for a 70-hour week, that's $11 an hour. That may not sound too bad, right? But remember, the 900 plus hours I spent during pre-production, if we simplify things a bit and divide the 900 plus hours by 50 episodes, that is around 18 hours per episode. Add this to the 70-hour week, and we are now making $9 an hour. $9 an hour. So the minimum wage in the US is $7.25, and it has not changed in like 10 to 15 years. So, with the influx and change of the world, the minimum wage in the US, that's no longer the minimum wage in my opinion. I'm not going to get into that, but I'm just saying like the cost of living has risen, whereas the minimum wage has not. So, take that how you want to take it, okay? I'm not going to get into that. So, let's continue reading before I get on a tangent about something not related. Still, some of you might still think $9 an hour is not that bad. The thing is, I did not get the whole $800 per episode, even though I worked 70 plus hours a week. I still needed help. I had an assistant to pay who helped with coloring, whom I could not meet the weekly schedule from Webtoon. I also had to buy 3D assets for backgrounds because drawing them by hand is not possible given the time frame. In the end, I was taking in around $450 per episode. Some creators say they take in as low as $300 after paying all their assistants. If you count $450 for around an 88-hour week, if you count $450 for around an 88-hour plus week per episode, I was making around $5 an hour. That is deranged. Like no other words, $5 an hour. I won't even get into all the time I spend on social media trying to promote our series because Webtoons will not promote you unless you are already popular. Isn't that helpful? $5 an hour. That's how much I made as an original creator. You must think I'm an idiot for signing the contract. Why do I do this? Because Webtoons makes you a big promise. If your series does well, you'll get a ton from FastPass money and ad revenue. I lost my spot. I'm sorry. I thought to myself, yeah, $5 an hour is not livable, but if I work hard enough and made a good series, then maybe I can make it big with the profit share from Webtoon. Nope, my series first has to meet a minimum threshold first before I see any money. So they're talking about the FastPass money. My series threshold is $40,000. How they calculate $800, my per episode fee, times 50, my episode amount. I'm not even remotely near that, and therefore my series will never see a single cent of profit shared in this lifetime. So all I really make is just $5 an hour and all the friends along the way. Please, I beg you, stand with us creators on this one. Help us. Don't push down this tiny bit of momentum we have right now to fight for fair wage by telling everyone $800 per episode is not bad, because it really is bad. I will answer questions before they remove the threads. Ask me literally anything and I will share it. I'll scroll down and we can look at some of the comments, but let's literally just talk about this. So let me just ask you guys, what do y'all think? Do y'all think $800 per episode is a good fee for a creative project that takes 80 hours a week? So to give you the monthly totals, I've got my handy dandy calculator right here. So if we're doing an 80-hour a week, so 80 hours a week times 4, that's 320 hours a month. And so then $800 times 4, that's $3,200. That's what you make for the whole month. So, oh, we've got a comment. So Jess, hello Jess, so glad you could join tonight. I've been saying being an original creator isn't what it's cracked up to be. I think they intentionally make fast money unreachable for creators. Yeah, 100% agree. I could not agree any less with you, Jess. I think people have really gotten into this mindset that being a Webtoon original creator is the end all be all. But you have to look at, there's a lot of creators that are being successful not being a Webtoon original creator that are making comics. I feel like Webtoons showed up in a time where there was a real need for something to change. And so when it did change and we saw that there were so many creators, really blowing up, really getting big from all of this, that it made it feel like, oh wow, this is the way I need to go. And so I kind of think of that mentality of like the person who does it first is the one who gets always recognized for it. So even if like something amazing comes after it, it's really hard for that amazing thing to compete with the original users or the original people who led the charge in whatever aspect, career, creative, whatever aspect or project. So Jess said, I bet most creators work more than 80 hours per week because some of these episodes are enormous. Jess, they did say in the Reddit post, which if you're watching this in the future, that they've talked to some creators who do work 80 plus hours. And they've also talked to creators who take home as little as $300 a month. So, not a month, a week. So think about $300 a week. If we do $300 times 4, that's only $1,200 a month. That's wild. $1,200 a month. That cannot pay my rent. I'm just being honest. Like, I don't even live in a big metropolitan. I live in the south of the US, as I've told you guys before. And, in my opinion, the south would be on the lower side of pricing for a lot of things. But even that amount of money, like literally all of my money would have to go to rent. And I wouldn't even be able to have water, electricity, or food. Atagong said, many of the biggest Webtoon creators right now, I remember being big when I first discovered Webtoon. And few have managed to reach up to their level. I think that's really, really weird. Like, if Webtoon is focusing on creating IP and they're trying to say like, oh, we're trying to, really become this place where people come to us for stories. They come to us for intellectual property because we have so much, that it's weird that they don't want to push more IP. Like, just to test it to see if it'll be good. And I feel like gone are the days when I used to get 1 million ads on Webtoons or on YouTube for Webtoons. Like, I remember Castle Swimmer, Lore Olympus, Unordinary. There were so many comics being pushed on YouTube that they don't do that anymore. But why not? I mean, I feel like it's only beneficial to them to keep growing IPs because these big IPs are going to stop at some point. Like, they can't go on forever. I mean, technically they probably could. Like, where there's a will, there's a way. A writer can always figure out some way to continue their story. But is it even worth that? Like, if I was somebody who was working on something, I'm working towards ending it at some point. Like, unless they're thinking in terms of like how Marvel and DC write their stories, where it's very episodic. But there's no story on Webtoons that I've seen that are big that follow an episodic format. They're all following a long storytelling format. Jess said, I think it's international. The flood of new creators the last 2 years was to make it so no one gets enough views for fast pass revenue. Those Webtoon traders were insane. They were crazy. Webtoons can keep all the fast pass money while readers are doing it thinking they're helping support their favorite artists. I agree and disagree with that statement in the sense that I don't think I don't think readers necessarily think all the time about the creators. The really informed ones do, but I don't think everybody does. So I think a lot of the fast pass, I think if more people knew that creators weren't getting the fast pass money, they probably would just sub to their Patreon or however they could read the next episode. So let's look at some comments. Ooh, this one's really long. That one's a really good one to read. I don't want to... We have like 4 other articles to get through, so I don't want to spend all my time reading that one. There was one I was thinking about. Okay, this one was really interesting. So it was about the buffer. So this person was talking about how they have a buffer. Like, okay, if you have a buffer, then you should be ahead, etc., etc. So they went on to elaborate about this. And I think this is so interesting because so many people talk about how you release 3 episodes and then have a 3-episode buffer. But is that how Webtoons actually works? Are they just like, oh, yes, just we only want you ahead by 3 episodes? Well, let's get into it. Thank you for speaking out on this. My biggest point of confusion is about the production. You have to make a buffer before you launch, correct? Then where does this weekly production of a full episode come in? Are you not allowed to turn in an episode every 2 weeks or so? Or is it more of a case that if you don't turn in an episode a week, you lose out on this already low pay? Apologies for what you and your fellow creators are going through. I hope this sparks a real change in the company. And remember, this is all from a year ago, so things could have changed and gotten a little better. So I just want to preface that, to keep that in mind. Anyway, and this person brings up some good points. Like, if you have a buffer, then why are you working so tirelessly to produce episodes every week? So the person responded, thank you for your question. Before starting publication, I had to build up a buffer of 15 episodes. That's the Webtoon standard. 15 episodes. So that means that there is a 12 episode buffer in the bank. So that's why it takes creators so long to do buffers sometimes, is because they're doing 15 episodes. Now, pausing right there for 1 second. If we think about this, that means that this person has 3 months worth of buffer, which means that Webtoons feels that give me a second. I've riled myself up. Whew. Okay. So that means that Webtoons feels that for a creator to sustain a weekly schedule, they need to have at least 3 months of buffer in the bank. So that means that Webtoons knows to a reasonable degree, because I feel like if they thought that a weekly buffer was manageable, it wouldn't be so many episodes. Like, it wouldn't be, oh, okay, well, let's do 5 episodes. Let's do 4 episodes. Give you a month buffer. No, they do 3 months. So then let's continue. At launch, the post 3 free, 3 fast pass, 6 episode total. So effectively, you have 9 episodes left as buffer. Okay, my bad. My thing was off. So that's like 2 months buffer. So I guess disregard what I just said. Then every week, Webtoons releases 1 new free pass episode. If I spend 2 weeks on one episode, the 9-episode buffer will catch up to me in a few months. If I spend 2 weeks on one episode, the 9-episode buffer will catch up. Oh, I read that. If that happens, then you get into a mid-season hiatus and everyone will hate you or even lose interest in the series. I signed for a 50-episode season. Plus, technically, we cannot let that happen. In our contract, we are allowed 4 weeks breaks total throughout this 50-episode season. We are held accountable legally to keep things running at all times and not go on a hiatus. 1 week production time is a must. During your interview, they asked you this too. If your answer is no, I cannot deliver in 1 week, then you are not picked. And you're right to. If I spend 2 weeks on something, then I'm making half of that $5 an hour. So, because you have to think about this. Like, if you're working on something with assistants, depending on your contract with those assistants, like let's say the assistant says you have to pay me when I finish my work, which a lot of artists, that's how they get paid. They don't delay their payment. And so if you find, there could be artists that are like, yeah, sure, pay me later. But anyway, so they're like, pay me. I finished the work that you've required and I won't give you your episodes colored until I receive my payment. Well, you got to pay them. And so if you're only producing 2 episodes a month, you're only making $1,600. That's it. Delphi, hi. You are late, but we're just kind of getting into this. We're in the rabbit hole of Reddit right now. So also, if you're interested in any of the Reddit stories, they're linked in the description below. I just want to shout those out because I might forget, and I just want to make sure that you all have access to them. All right, so let's look at this last comment, and then we'll move on from here. And I want to ask you guys, like, do y'all think that the $800 is a livable wage? Like, do you think $800 a week for a webtoon is reasonable? And we'll get into it. I have my thoughts on it. I just want to know what y'all's opinions are before I just get on my tangent. Okay, so this person said, thanks so much for making a thread on this. It's been so frustrating me to see people idolizing the $800 week thing as if that's just a static cost everyone's making and there isn't other being taken into account like taxes. Remember, if you work for Webtoons, they hire you essentially as a contractor or a subcontractor, which means unless it's in your contract, they're paying you without taking taxes out. So let's say that you make $800. Well, you have taxes and taxes from multiple different sources, which means that your revenue could drop as low as $600 a month, which if you're not accounting for that, you have a large lump sum to pay, not $600 a month. I meant of that $800, it could drop down to $600 a week. Anyway, so if you're not accounting for that, you'll have to pay a large lump sum at the end of the next year. Let's continue to read. So, taxes, assistant wages, hourly rates, etc. And I'm not even an originals creator. It just comes from blatant misunderstanding of how mentally and physically exhausting this work can be. It's not just drawing. It's drawing the same stuff every single day, 12 plus hours a day with insane deadlines and expectations. It's not like working an office job or doing comics as a hobby. Edit. Also, even that $11 hour baseline that you calculated initially is not a living wage in a lot of places. Where I live, our minimum wage has been $11.50 an hour for the last few years, and our local government has outlined plans to get it to 15 hours by October. But the living wage here is still something like 20 plus hour requirement to make ends meet in our current housing market and not be one emergency away from bankruptcy and homelessness. So let me pause there. that is the thing that drives me so crazy, is that minimum wage is not always reflective of what the living wage is. So you have to keep that in mind too. Before you take on something, look up what the minimum living wage is, not the minimum wage that, you know, the government has assigned. Like, look up what the living wage is, like what the people say, because that's going to tell you if you'll be able to afford to live. Point is, I could literally just work at Starbucks or McDonald's for those hourly rates and draw comics in my free time and not be driven to physical and mental burnout. Actual reality, I work as a tattoo artist as my day job, and it's a very unpredictable work, but profitable when busy. I'm extremely lucky to have that job. So this is another person in a creative field that's talking about how, yes, being an artist is unpredictable, but depending on what you're doing, like, you can be compensated for being a creative. Oh, Joe, hello. Thank you for joining the stream. Jess said, I wouldn't do it for that much money. Not worth it for me. So, okay, let's go ahead and jump back over to the PowerPoint. I just want to say that I just find it completely insane that, you know, people really idolize this sort of living situations. And I think that part of it is because Webtoons has really geared in towards younger people. So either like people right out of high school, so like that 18, 17 mark, or people who are in college or right out of college. And so you're still kind of learning, still kind of figuring out how a lot of like, I don't want to say how the world works because I hate when people say that, but a lot of how like actual things cost, actual things like can affect your life, how important our society bases money. And so when you're not able to do a lot of things that you see like either your friends doing or things that, you know, even stuff on social media that you want to do, then it's like ... what's going on? Joe said, luckily this time I could catch up with the live stream. Yes, thank you for being here. We love having you here, Joe. Joe's always been so awesome. So everybody give all the hearts to Joe in the chat if you can. He's always just been a big supporter of us. And so I always appreciate all of you guys who support us. And I try to, you know, show some love and shout outs to all of you when I can. So, is $800 an hour actually something worth giving up my soul for? Absolutely not. No way. And then if we think about taxes being added onto this, that means that you're dropping down to, I would say, anywhere between $600 to $700. And that's me being generous. Like, taxes could hit you even harder. Like, I'm not a tax accountant, so I'm just like, I don't know, y'all. Like, it seems rough. And so when someone talks like that tattoo artist, they talked about how like, okay, well, I work as, you know, a tattoo artist and I get to do this as my full-time job, but then I can do comics in my free time. Like, if you want to work an 80-hour week, you could do 40 hours a week at a main job, make, you know, 20 plus hour or $20 plus an hour or however much, and still do a comic. You could do it bi-weekly. Like, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. Of course, I feel like doing it yourself, you're not holding yourself as accountable because like you're not legally obligated. Like, you could quit anytime. But I'm just saying, like, if you're about that 80-hour plus work week, which, who knows, maybe you could figure it out where you don't have to do that. But I'm just saying, if that's something where you're like, yeah, I'm just going to grind, then pursuing something, you know, as your full-time 40-hour career makes more sense. And then spending another 40 hours in your free time at home or wherever working on a webtoon, I feel like that makes more logical sense. So it boils down to me thinking practical. Like, if I am dedicated to doing this, if that's something I want to do, okay, is this going to be time well spent, or is it going to literally destroy me? And remember, art can be really hard on your body. Sitting all day, which granted, you can sit in the office all day and that can be hard on your body too, but we're talking 40 hours to 80 hours of sitting. Or like, let's think about the fact that for pre-production, if you're an adult, which when I say adult, let me rephrase. If you're an adult who does not live with their parents or live with someone who can support you, then are you able to do a pre-production realistically? Because that 4 months, if we think about the call to action contest, I think a majority of those comics have not come out. And I know somebody who is still in pre-production. Which, I'm saying they're still in pre-production, meaning like their comic hasn't been released yet. They could be turning in episodes and getting paid, but their comic's not out, so their following's not growing. They're not getting of that extra money. The only thing that they're getting is that one-time fee every time they turn in episodes. So make it make sense. Like, explain to me how this makes sense. Explain to me why this would be the avenue that you would want to travel. I just want to understand from that perspective, which it could just be me and thinking about what's the most cost effective. Because if you think about the fact that if Webtoon's not advertising you either, so you're doing all of this, you're growing a small following in comparison to what you could be growing, is it even worth it? Because you're not getting the following. There are some Webtoon creators, I'll look at their socials and whatnot, and I'm not saying that like, oh, you have only 500 followers and you're an original. I'm not saying like, wow, like that's terrible. I'm just saying I would think you would have more as an original creator. And so are you building that fan base? Are you getting that fan base from originals? And then there's a 40 panel minimum. So could you turn in an episode with 38 panels? Let's say you normally turn in long panels, but let's say they're like, okay, well, your next episode is slow, so you need to figure out a way to add in some extra panels to this, which I guess that wouldn't be too hard. But I'm just saying, like, you don't even have control over your panels, because I feel like there could be some episodes where it's like, not even that deep. Like, is it worth this? Is it worth, like, make it make sense. That's all I have to say. And then you have art assistants. Now the more I learn about like how Korea works, the more I find that not a lot of them talk about, but I have learned that a lot of them hire whole teams to produce these webtoons. That's insane. So a whole team, which that makes me wonder, how much are those, like, they have to be negotiating better deals over there, because there's no way a team is making $800 an hour and there's like 10 people working on this. That's crazy. I can't believe that. So I think there might be a discrepancy in like US pay versus other pay. And I've seen a little bit where people talk about how like the US pay doesn't match, I want to say South America. So that's something to be very aware of. All right, let's hit our next Reddit story. Okay. And, let me just say this. I'm not trying to discourage anybody from being a Webtoon original, but just like when we had our legal discussion, just like when we had our Webtoon readers able to give their opinions, I'm just giving you what I view as a more realistic take, so that if you do get an offer, if you do, find out something from Webtoons, or a company approaches you about picking up your comic or whatever, that you can make a more informed decision. Like, actually think about things that affect your life and that things that you want. Because if you're viewing this as something that's like the next chance for you to become a millionaire, like, take a second to think about it. How many Webtoon creators are millionaires? It's kind of like how many actors in Hollywood are actually making a livable wage. And then when we see, everything with the writer's strike now and then the actor's strike, and it's like, oh wow, like a lot of actors, they're not making a lot of money. Yeah, a lot of them aren't. So it's kind of like, pay attention to things so that you can learn about it. So if you want to be a Webtoon original creator, I'm all about it. Go get your bag. But be smart about it and make sure that Webtoons is giving you that bag up front. So Joe said, drawing all days, that'll cause a lot of physical and mental issues. Let's be honest. And who's going to take all the repair fees though? Whoo! Joe out here giving us the truth. And I think unless it's changed, Joe actually works with like, I don't know, I can't remember if you work with comics, Joe, specifically, but I know you work in like the artist industry. So Joe does this full time. All right, let's look at our next Reddit story. So excited. All right, so this one, and let me close this one. So, another Webtoon Original Creator. And a lot of what I found here to be really interesting was more so, they said that they would respond to a lot of comments. So we're going to look at comments more so. But basically, they said, I saw some misinformation flirting around and some conflicting opinions on whether or not to continue supporting Webtoons as a company. I think the situation is pretty complex and Twitter isn't the greatest if you want to talk nuance. I have no easy solutions and I don't pretend to, but I feel like filling any gaps y'all might have couldn't hurt. All right, so let's scroll down. No, we don't need to get into that. Okay, let's look at this. Do you have a tight release schedule? How many hours a day do you need to draw to keep up? Does it lead to burnout? Does the company have influence on content, the story, the mature stuff, etc.? More tea. Number 1, we release 1 episode a week, and theoretically, that'll go up to two once our first series returns for season 3. To be honest with you, I don't know how we'll do it. I think we just need to build a very, very big buffer before we can come back safely. We start into work around 8 to 9 a.m. every day, and depending on the day, we sometimes go till 11 at night. I would say on average, with lunch break taken out, we spend an average 10 to 12-ish hours a day on our work, and we don't take weekends off. The burnout is bad, but I think we've transcended regular burnout at this point after a few years of this. I can no longer take stuff off without stress. I can no longer take a day off without stressing out and feeling guilty anymore. I will sometimes hit cataclysmic levels of burnout and have a breakdown, but I usually get better within a few days. Number 2. So this was, does the company have influence on the content? Webtoons has a varying level of influence on the content depending on the creators and their editor. Our editor is awesome. They're wonderful. We adore her and she gives us a lot of good feedback, but knows when we're just not gonna budge on something. I've heard horror stories about other editors and especially their treatment of younger, less confident creators. But that aside, they cannot force us to change anything in the story unless it violates their TOS. So I think that's something important to remember. So Webtoons TOS, it's important to understand, like, when you enter into a contract with someone, what is going to violate terms. And so there can be ambiguous sentences within a contract, which makes it so that the company or even the creator, they are able to say things so that they can get around it to make you change. But this is where having a lawyer or having somebody who's like very legal minded in your corner to be able to help support you. And if someone's trying to force you to make a decision on something, one of the biggest things that I learned from a business class was you don't have to respond immediately. You can always respond, like, when you're on equal level with someone, So if you're in a partnership, which more or less that's what this is, if they say, we don't want this, you have to change it, you can say, well, let me think about it. I'll get back to you. And they're like, no, you have to change it now. Let me think about it. I'll get back to you. Because otherwise, forcing you to make a decision right then, one, it could either be the decision that you're not happy with and it literally ruins everything that you were trying to do. Because as creatives, we have particular visions for things. So if our vision is not vibing with that, unless it's doing something or unless you can give me a logical reason to change it, then I'm not changing it. And I kind of stand by that myself. So that's just something I thought was really interesting. Like, Webtoons can change things, but unless it's breaking their TOS, they can't actually force you to change it. Could they in your series? I don't know. It depends on what your contract says. So, with that being the case, if we look at one more thing, 10 to 12 hours a day, that's a long time. So if you work 9 to 5 with an hour break, that means that these guys are working that means sometimes they're working from 8 a.m. to midnight almost. That's insane. I could never. Like, I'm not working all day every day. Like, what's the point in having like all of this, like, you're working on your passion project, but you're exhausted every single day. You never have a free day to do anything. That sounds hard to me. So, like I said, being a Webtoon original is not for me. It's just not. Okay, so this is the interesting comment I really wanted to get into, and I think this is from the guy from our previous post, the tattoo artist. So they said, all right, so I don't know if this will get seen, responded to, or not, because I'm late to this thread, and I know that this is definitely a loaded question with no single answer, but it's one that's been weighing on my mind for a while, knowing what I know, and it just becomes more compelling to ask the more I learn. So, at this point in the game, what is really separating Webtoon original creators from canvas creators? From what I've seen, read, etc., from both yourself and others, some of whom are my own pals in comic creating circles, original creators, aren't paid a living wage. Barely have support from the platform in terms of advertising, publishing deals, event coordination, etc. Some that traditional publishing houses are all about. Ask any published author. Any publishing house worth working with will go above and beyond to get your work seen and sold, because a win for you is a win for them. So let's pause right there. I think I've told you guys before that I would love to open my own publishing house. As someone who, since kind of getting more into YouTube, I really feel like being able to nurture a series and bring it to fruition, being able to, help other people learn about it and be excited about a story that I'm excited about, like, sounds like so much fun to me. And so if I really believed in a series, like, I would be like, okay, we need to hit all of these places. These are the places we need to go. We need to be marketing on this. Like if I can't do the marketing for you, which I feel like a publishing house should, which in my opinion, that's exactly what Webtoons is. They are a publishing house. Let me not get into that, because I think I've seen some people say that they're a technology company. But anyway, I think it's deranged that you would not have advertisements for series. And I feel like it wouldn't even be that hard on a digital, platform. Like, I feel like it's so weird to me that a publishing house won't push or advertise for other creators, and the creators are the sole ones doing it. I do feel that creators should advertise, because a lot of readers, your fan base, a lot of people come to, a lot of people that have big fan bases support not only the creator for their passion, for their project, but they support the creator because they like the creator. Like, look at Taylor Swift. Shout out to Taylor Swift. I just saw the Eras Tour movie and it was life changing. And if anybody wants to buy me tickets to see her in person, I would not say no. I would probably become your best friend. Anyway, let's continue with this because I'm getting all over the place. So they say don't get any sort of financial security. So I think they're talking about like a 401k or something like that, or health coverage. Health coverage in America is expensive. So I won't get into that. Don't get weekends or holidays, save for mid-season / season finale hiatuses. And I'm sure many creators spill that building a buffer for when they return. Yeah, so if I'm off from my normal job, I'm not working my normal job. Like, I'm sorry to tell y'all, but that just ain't happening. Like, I'm not doing work when I'm not at work. Like, the moment I clock out, like, I don't think about work until the next day. Unless somebody's like, how's work going? I'm like, I don't know. Fine, I guess. I mean, you have to ask them. They're running the company. Work 50 plus hour weeks at minimum to meet deadlines. Have to compete with their own peers on a front page that's growing increasingly more oversaturated and doesn't provide equal or equitable advertising opportunities. Have to rely a lot on their own networking, marketing, etc. to get people's eyes on their work. Have to pay for their own extra assistance out of pocket to meet their panel requirements and deadlines. Have to deal with a legal team that, in your words, are getting creepier with their contracting and how much they expect you to do for what you're getting. Have to worry about people pirating, screen capping their FastPass content and posting it to free-to-read message boards, groups, etc. Trust me, I see it in Webtoon-specific subreddits and Discords all the freaking time. People asking what happened in the new FreePass episodes so they don't have to pay for what is an optional service that, as you've stated, y'all don't even make much off until you hit a certain point, if you even hit it at all. Am I understanding that right? So let's pause right there. I feel like a lot of this wouldn't be an issue if they made more money. Like, if they made $1,500 an episode, or if they made like $2,000 an episode, I don't think it would be as big of an issue. Now, that's an extreme, but I'm just saying, like, think about if Webtoon creators were making at a minimum, let's say, 65 to 80,000 a year, I don't think this would be as big an issue. I think a lot of creators would be like, I love it and I don't have to worry about anything. But like, they're living below the poverty line, in my opinion. For my state anyway. For my opinion in the US. That might not be the same for other people. Like, other people might be like, that's great. Or Webtoons is just for young people. Okay. At the end of it, despite everything, are doing what they love. I know it's easy to say just Twitter doesn't get nuance. And normally I would agree with that statement, but I'm failing to see the nuance here. Like, it doesn't seem that complicated when it comes down to it. Webtoons is overworking and underpaying their contract employees. That's it. It's really not that complicated, especially with so many creators talking about it on their socials. Even before the whole not a side hustle controversy. So for once, I'm gonna say Twitter really isn't off the mark. The only thing I really disagree with is the group of people who are thinking it's okay to steal creators' content in protest or demand creators to put their livelihood at risk to go on strike. Y'all have enough on your plate. Clearly, you don't need to put up with that on top of all of it. Which, as you can see, this is an even longer thread, but I really wanted to just kind of like read that. And like, the person responds here. Oh, okay. Let me just read this a little bit. Where is it? Where is it? I think they said something about Canvas. I thought there was a comment about Canvas. It could be on another thread, but it's just like so much to read, and like we're already getting high up in the time, so I don't want to like, I shouldn't be worried about time, but I also need to stay on track. You know what I'm saying? So let's just start here. This is in response to what they said. So they said, Webtoon swooped in with an offer to them. We were terrified even at the time. We felt like we're going to regret this, but this is what we've been waiting for. Isn't this everything we've always wanted because we've romanticized it? So we took it. We felt like we'd regret it forever if we didn't. We felt like it'd be selfish to turn our noses up at something so many people wanted so badly. And at the time, stuff was pretty good at Webtoons. Our series didn't pop off. We struggled, but I still had a day job. And at the time, we were proud to have the title of Original. I mean, everyone knows it's... So... Many Canvas artists are just as talented, and many are far more talented than any of the original creators are. Let's not get into that, but it felt like validation. Since then, it's been sort of like a boiled frog situation. The degradation didn't start at all at once. There was no drop. It was slow decline, and by the time a lot of us noticed how bad it had gotten, we were already so deep in, we couldn't do much to fix our situation. In short, Canvas creators, at least ones who aspire to do this full time as their career, I think they deal with the gnawing emptiness. We did at any rate, and it's not all the time, and it doesn't really make sense. It's always just felt like, but why not me? So they're saying like it's the pick me girl syndrome. I have said this before, that signing a contract with Webtoons is a bit like taking a deal with the devil. You sign because you hope. And then on the other side, you realize that things are not exactly what they seemed. But you need to make the best of it now. It made sense to us at the time to sign. And it's weird. When I say nuance, I don't mean that in a way where I'm defending Webtoons. You're right that things are not right. Maybe it's Stockholm Syndrome. But there is no more difference between a Canvas creator and Originals creators than there is between a mouse looking for something to eat and one that has stumbled into a trap. I imagine the mouse in the trap is like, sure, was cool when I was free, but then I was also starving. And now I have this cool scrap of cheese, so that's not nothing, I guess. I think that is a perfect analogy. I feel like a lot of people sometimes will be like, oh yeah, like I really want this, but I know there's so many risks. And so, you know, they say like, you miss all the shots you don't take. And so you're like, okay, but it could be. And so then you take the shot and then you're like, well, I spent all my money at the casino. I guess I'll see how I'll pay my bills next month. So it's like, it's very much that to me. Like, it's really giving me that sort of energy. You know what I'm saying? So it makes me feel like I definitely believe it's very complex, and I feel like there's a lot of ways that individuals can, you know, figure out what works for them the best and figure out what makes the most sense for them. Could working at Webtoons and being a Webtoon original creator work? Yes. And I think we're starting to see that there are being a little bit of pushback and changes. Lily Dusk, she's the creator of Midnight Poppyland. She's gone from making her series every week to she has to do 3 times a month. I don't know the exact specifics of it, but I remember when I saw she announced that, I was like, yeah, that's smart. And I feel like eventually Webtoons is going to have to move that way for, especially in America, which I hope they do it all over the place. But I feel like there really needs to be a change in mentality for like especially you need to at least have people at the living wage, not minimum wage. That way people can live a decent life, and especially if they're willing to give away so much to you, 80 hours a week. Do you know how much of my life I'm giving away to you? Then I feel like I'm entitled to at least that. So let me ask you guys, do y'all feel that that guy was being really harsh in his statements, or do you feel that he was being kind of reasonable? Do you feel like it brought out a lot of insight into what you have to go through as a creator? Because he brought up a lot of stuff that I feel that people need to be aware of. Things that I didn't think of, things that I felt like made a lot of sense. I also feel like in response to it, the creator said like, you kind of idolize that goal and you feel kind of empty. And I feel like it is a big boost once you become an original. It is like something that you can put on your resume. Like, I do feel like it could be a very strategic move. It's just, I feel kind of like, for someone who's willing to dedicate 10 years of their life to Webtoon, that it's not being reciprocated. And I know that you need to prove yourself first in order to be like, for Webtoons, like any company, you have to prove yourself, prove that your product is worth it before we're willing to fully invest. But it's also kind of like, I'm investing and I'm not getting anything in return. Can you help me out, sort of thing? So just that 3 times per month is way more doable. 100% agree. Oh, this wine is so good. So let's talk a little bit about pros versus cons. And so I think an easy pro to look at is, I feel like being an original is a quick way to build a following. I feel that if you are strategic in how you assess growing your following, that once you finish your series, you could leave Webtoons and all the money could be yours. I think about like Kayez. They're a creator on YouTube, or they used to be. I don't know if they still are. I think they are. Just haven't seen them post in a while. But my point is that they were on that Webtoon grind, and then they finally like had a glow up and their Patreon took off. And I think one time when it first was taking off and they made a video about it, they were making $12,000 a month. Now, mind you, as an original, you would have, if you got signed, you're on that weekly grind, which I'm sure Kayez is too, but it's a $9,000 difference. And imagine what Kayez could do with, if they keep that level of income for a whole year. $12,000 a month. Let's just do a quick calculation of this. Times 12. That's $144,000 a month. And I know like y'all might be like, okay, you're focusing so much on the money aspect. Yes, but I'm trying to focus on the fact that you want to have a livable wage. And if you're doing something to the extent of destroying your body mentally and physically, you should be being compensated. I'm just saying, that's just how I feel. So a con, Webtoons, they're not the same as Webtoons is not the same right now as they were when they were kind of taking off in the beginning. I think, like I said, in the very beginning, when series were first getting picked up and Webtoons was really pushing hard, like we were getting all those YouTube ads and everything, I feel like we could really see that creators who were picked up then, it's a completely different ballgame to now. Another pro, you get to be recognized as an original creator. That's definitely something I feel like you could put on your resume, something that you could toot your own horn with. You would have the experience. Oh, well, we'll get into experience, but I think it's something that people would recognize. Like if someone was like, oh, I'm a Webtoon creator. And then like, you know, if you're in the business, then they would be like, okay, you're a creator. What side? Canvas or original? And then you're like, oh, I'm on Canvas. I feel like they don't take that as seriously. I feel like there's tons, like Canvas has proven that wrong, but I'm just talking about the mentality of it. So then a con, burnout. I feel like being burnt out would be really, really hard to like it's really like once you're burned out, I feel like it's really hard to recover sometimes. And so that's why I feel like some people go on hiatus and never come back. It was hard for them to recover and then come back to this. Like, I think Webtoons is going to eventually have to realize that burning out your artists and not helping them to the extent that they need is only going to alienate you from them, and eventually another company is going to come along, like we've been talking about. We talked about Apple, we talked about Lord, what are those other companies? They're like on the tip, like Shonen Jump, like all of them are moving over to Webtoons. I'm like, you better start treating your man, my accent came out heavy then. You better start treating your creators better, or they're gonna jump ship immediately and never look back. Joe said, Webtoon trying to act like manga and set the expectation for creators to create one chapter a week, but didn't realize manga black and white, Webtoon is full color. Right, like I feel like I get that color kind of sets them apart, but now that people are like they've established, I'm like, why can't people do black and white? Like people read manga, they love manga. Black and white would make things a lot easier for a lot of creators. Con, you're extremely busy, meaning no social life, no life of any kind. Like, I don't even know how people who are like married or in relationships and their partner is not working with them on this would be able to do anything with them. Like, I don't know how they are able to even feed themselves. I would be like, I don't have time to eat. I don't have time to drink water. Like, oh, that's TMI. I was about to tell you something really personal. Let me not get like completely deranged on this. But a pro, you get to become a professional creator and do this full time. You get the experience as a writer, as an artist. You get to learn from editors. You get to learn from like the business of things. You get to be involved with legal. You get to learn so much. And I feel like that's really beneficial. But I also kind of think like, is that worth it? I didn't mean to make that a con, but it's kind of like, I mean, it's a pro, but it's rough. Adagong said, even mangaka are overworked. Yes, even doing it in black and white. And they have full teams, mind you. A lot of these people have full teams, still work to the bone. It's a rough life. Like, I feel like you've got to understand that going down this path will be hard. Will it be rewarding? I think it definitely could be rewarding. But I feel like we need to keep in mind that it's not the end all be all of everything. Like, who knows? A new publishing house could be on the rise and you could be the next big thing. Okay, so we're gonna jump to Reddit, and this is gonna be our last time, but I wanted to just share a few more stories with you guys before wrapping up everything. So this person said, is becoming a Webtoon original worth it? They said, basically they're like, it's my dream, blah, 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 but I've heard some things, I've heard some drama, some horror stories, that sort of thing. So I want to ask you guys, is becoming an original worth it? Can you have a successful comic on the platform without becoming an original? So a lot of people basically were like, yeah, no. Like, it's not worth it. So, which I found to be interesting because some of these people, like a lot of these people are not original creators from what I read, which, I mean, I didn't read every single comment, but come on now. Like, if you're that interested, go back and read all of it yourself. So like this person, they said, not a Webtoon creator, just an artist. So take my response with a grain of salt. Take everything I said on this live stream with a grain of salt, just saying. But to be honest, unless you have an incredibly large following with millions of reads, probably not. Even with the large following, I've seen creators quit because the posting schedule and the treatment they get, along with lack of communication. I've also heard some artists get favoritism, which seems to be the case, as certain webtoons will get way more promo than others, even if they're all originals. Let me pause right here because I kind of disagree with this. So let me just explain. I think every series, if they have advertising in their contract, like if I was the publishing house and I said, hey, I'm going to advertise your comic, I'm going to advertise your story, I'm going to give it attention. Okay, but if you're new, you have not proven to me that it's worth advertising your story more than another story that's really popular. And that might sound bad, but that is the business brain that you have to have when you're running this sort of company. When am I going to get the most bang for my buck? Well, I know that people love this series. We need to see how your series grows before I can invest much more. And I get it if you're not getting any advertisement or it's very limited. It might come across like, okay, well, I don't understand. They're getting like 90%. 90% advertisement for one series is a lot. So if it's something like that, I see it. But what I'm trying to say basically is a company is always trying to make itself more money. And if this thing has proven to make it money, it's going to keep feeding into whatever is going to make it the most money. It's not necessarily fair. It's not necessarily something that I feel like people are like, oh, I understand, because at the end of the day, you want your series to be successful too. So I can see both sides of it, but I'm just defending the business side of things. And if I'm running a business, the more money I make, the more money I can, feed to grow the business, to make it better and improve things. But, some people just pocket the money. I would definitely be like, okay, there's things I need to fix, or people who deserve a raise. Listen, if you work a job, you always deserve a raise if you're doing a good job. Just putting that out there. Never sell yourself short. You're valuable, people. Okay. Where were we? I'm semi-acquainted with an artist whose webtoon is a canvas under the creators program, which seemed to be working well until Webtoons announced the closing of the program, I think by the end of the year. It made it so that creators can no longer make any money from the platform itself, outside sources like Patreon aside. I've heard that Tapas pays, your per view of your comic. I've never done it, but I believe it's part of their creator program. If someone has better info on this, please correct me. So I will say, from what I remember about this, because I felt like this has always been a little bit of misinformation, Webtoons, when they first opened that, they said that it was like going to end, like it wasn't a permanent program. Just putting that out there, but I just wanted to say that. So, but it does limit Canvas in a sense that it's harder to make more money. All right, so let's scroll to our next comment. This person says, it depends, I guess. Not being an original gives you more creative freedom, but you'll reach a smaller audience. And as much people complain about Webtoons and the awful schedule, there sure are a lot of authors who reach out to Webtoon to pitch a new story after already working with them as an original once or twice. But anyway, depending on what your story is, it might be worth it to not become an original. Niche stories don't do as well, and you won't feel as pressured to keep your story running for all eternity if you're not an original. If you don't become an original, you're allowed to post your work to as many places online as you want, and you can sell physical prints of your comic as well. If you're an original, you're only allowed to post on Webtoons, and I'm pretty sure you aren't allowed to sell physical copies, although selling merch of your characters seems to be fine. Oh, we got some clarification. Thank you so much. So, I think it's Kylie Blue. They said it was temporary. So I'm guessing in regards to the creator program. When I signed up, it was temporary. Okay, thank you for the clarification. Chaos Gremlin. Oh. Okay. Sorry if I put you on blast there and you did not want your name revealed there. If you need me to cut it out, I definitely will. So I'm sorry about that. So Chaos Gremlin, thank you for clarifying that it was a temporary change. Kylie. Got it. Okay. So, what's interesting here is that this person talks about the fact that being an original, not being an original gives you more freedom. I think that's definitely the case. I feel like there's so much that goes on where if you want to do something really creative or something, really interesting, you don't have to go through Webtoons to figure out if you can do it. You can just do it. You can do whatever you want. If you want to do a, visual novel of your story, turn your story into a game, if you want to sell it to somebody, if you want, whatever you want to do, if you want to turn it into a novel, you don't have to get Webtoons' opinion. Which all of that is additional revenue for you. So if you can change something into revenue, then I think that's really smart and that it'll be really beneficial to you as a creator. The more revenue streams you can create, the longer you can be an artist, maybe you won't have to work every single month because your revenue stream is coming in and you're like, oh wow, I made $6,000 this month. I don't have to work if I don't want to. So I feel like that's really important. Okay, this person said, I don't have an original comic, but I was trying to get to publishers, failed, but in the end, I came to the conclusion it's picking your poison situation. As an original, you get paid to create comics. You get help from professional editors. You get your marketing covered, but then you have to deal with deadlines and involving other people with creating your story. As freelance artists, you have much more freedom with creating. Where to post your comic, no deadlines. If you're lucky with your Patreon, you can earn much more with less work than the original. But then you have to do your own advertising because your comics market is so oversaturated that it's impossible to have good organic growth. Chaos Gremlin, leave us a link to your Webtoon. I'd definitely love to check it out. I feel like that'd be fun. Thanks so much for coming to the stream. Adagong said, the freedom I've seen from canvas artists does appear more enjoyable than of originals. Yeah, I definitely think it depends. Ooh, so this is a comment that I thought was pretty... I agreed with it. So I thought it was pretty smart. For me, it's a hard pass. As a designer, artist, and training myself, I know that with less luck than it takes to become an original, I can earn more with a 50 to 60 hour job paid at $40 an hour. But hey, the industry has always been meh, especially if I have landed a FT job in advertising. Unless my webtoon gets super duper popular, which I can tell now won't happen because I currently have no interest in writing romance. If you make it big, I mean really big, because some originals do get drowned out, you can probably push more against Webtoon's treatment and push for better for yourself at least. But until then, it's nose to the grindstone, making honestly not that much per hour, especially if you are living in a first world country. And for me personally, as an observer, the Webtoon Originals creators seem pretty disconnected. I don't think there will be a time when all the big names band together and collectively force Webtoon to make better for all the originals. So I wouldn't hope for positive change in the future. And this is a really interesting comment. One, because they bring up the fact that they think that an individual will not necessarily change like they feel like the big names would all need to come together to really enforce this change. However, they don't think that's going to happen because Webtoons is like a contract by contract basis. So it would take a lot of work, like a lot of coordination. Like they would have to essentially unionize. Like Webtoons needs a union. Like like that sounds deranged, but I'm just saying, like, I feel like that kind of would be the only thing to really help them. Like, any new creator or any creator up for, you know, negotiating contract, like, you really need to negotiate and not just say yes. And so I feel like if everyone could get on the same page about what was a minimum living wage, then that would make the most sense. Like, it's hard, I think, especially for big names, because it's kind of like, well, I'm successful. Like, but at the end of the day, it does trickle down. Like, or I shouldn't say trickle down. It does affect everyone. And so, like, if you want your company that you work for to succeed, them having good press or them being able to sustain being a decent company, because let's say like all the creators that aren't big leave and go to another platform and they start posting there, and the other company, the other publishing house is all about like pushing these stories, and they happen to, you know, make it big. That would be insane. And now the company that you work for is gone and obliterated in the ashes. So Chaos Gremlin said, the only thing I can see moving Webtoon is people not agreeing to terms anymore. Yes. Fight for what you need and what you deserve. Another interesting thing that they said is basically what we were talking about earlier with the tattoo artist is like, you can work in another job and still, you know, make webtoons on the side and get a living wage. So let's head back to our PowerPoint. I don't think, I clicked on the wrong thing. I don't think that I will look at that fourth article. I should have pulled it up, but just know that it's linked in the description below. I was kind of thinking I'd only go for an hour and 30 minutes. And so we've covered a lot of stuff, which if we really feel like we need to cover more about this, I can always set up another stream. So if you want another stream, I could definitely do that. But I just wanted to like really give you an overview and really give you the feeling of like, is it really worth being a Webtoon original? I definitely think that it could be. I definitely think that there are a lot of aspects of Webtoon that are beneficial to creators and whatnot, but I feel like you have to be smart when you're doing business. This is business, and businesses are looking out for themselves. And if you are a subcontractor, if you are a contractor, you become a business, which means you need to be looking out for yourself. Like, you should not feel bad asking for what you feel you deserve. So if Webtoons is like, hey, we're only going to pay you enough for you to have $300 a month at the end of the day, you should be like, oh, heck no. I'm sorry, that ain't happening. Because let me tell you, that's deranged. And as someone, like, I'm not trying to hate on Webtoons. I like Webtoons as a company. Webtoons inspired a lot of what I do now on YouTube. Like, I really fell into webcomics from this. I fell in, like, it's got my creative juices going as a writer. It's got my creative juices going as an artist. I've done so much and learned so much. I've learned so much about, like, layouts and design, and it's, like, forced me to, like, really tell my own stories and make my own characters, all that. But at the end of the day, that's my experience with it. Like, you have to make your own decisions about what's going to, like, make you the most happy. And so I wanted to kind of end the topic on the fact that there are creators or people who are working with Webtoons that have had good experiences. And it's from those Reddit posts that we were looking at. And so like one person said that they've been original creators since August 20th, and they said that it's worth it. Lots of hard work and BS from the Green Company, but ultimately the audience is incredible. My readership is very loyal. I have zero regrets, and I hope to do this for many years to come. That said, like any other high-stress full-time job, it's not for everyone. So it could just be that Webtoons is not for people like me, people who, value money, which I guess you could look at it that way. I don't necessarily value money. I'm not a materialistic person, but I'm just saying people, like, if I'm doing a job, I definitely want to get paid for it. And so I'm like that, in that sense, I do value money. So like passion over money. And so someone might be more passionate and be able to live with less, whereas I'm more so like, I want what I'm owed, and I'm not happy unless I get what I'm owed. And so that could be, the difference between whether or not you want to work with the company on a long-term basis. Like I said, I'm all about like working with them short-term. Like if they were ever like, hey, Apollo, what stories do you have? Can you like send us a little short story, a little 12-episode story? And I'd be like, heck yeah, I can send you an outline for that. Or if they want to like buy a story from me, heck yeah, you can buy a story from me. You're going to get the artist to do all of it? Sure. Just send me a royalty check. Thanks. So another person said, I'd say it was worth it. I'm only using my comic as a means to save up to continue my education. That being said, it varies from person to person. I'm just thankful to be in a position where I have some financial support from my family. My comic isn't big and didn't really get promo besides being on the front page banner for a day. So that kind of sucks. But I don't know. I'm not too bothered by it. I'm still making a story I'm passionate about. Which there was other positive people talking about how they enjoyed being Webtoon creators, how they really liked it. And so I really focused on the more negative aspects of it. I don't necessarily view them as negative, but I feel like they were more realistic in the sense of like you should go in with all of the facts. And I feel like if you already have the passion, you already have the drive for the series, then you don't need to be like, oh, well, it's so great and wonderful. You need to hear like what's messed up about it. Like, what are the issues? I would say the same thing if you're working with like a publishing house. What's the dirt on the publishing house? Like, if you can figure out things about, like, the more info you know, the better you can be in your decisions when going up against somebody, or I'm saying going up against somebody, but I guess in business you are going up against somebody. So the more you know, the better off you'll be. Like, that's literally just how it is. Like, the person who has the most information in business generally is the one who comes out on top. Generally. Well, and the one who has the most money. Okay, so Jess said, in summary, Webtoon sucks to work for. It makes me wonder what other companies pay. Like, I wonder how much, like, Tapas original people get. Like, that would be really interesting to find out. And then Jess said, unless you got a sugar daddy. So, if you got you got something going on the side or something, Webtoons might be the career for you. Although, would you even have time for the sugar after that? Okay, that got wild. All right, questions and comments. So if you have anything that you'd like to ask about what we were talking about, or if you just want to ask me something, I went ahead and made this amazing slide. I love it so much. Like, it turned out so good. So if you have anything you want to ask me about like Webtoons or what's going on with Webtoons, or if you want to just ask about me, ask about my projects, just ask me how I'm doing, I'm down to listen. I was sharing in our pre-show, our pre-show So I was sharing with people a little bit about what's going on. As you guys know, who've been coming to the stream, like I have an avatar now and I'm so excited about him. I love little Apollo. He's so cute to me. And so I was just telling them how I'm updating everything. So I want everything to have a more uniform aesthetic. So be expecting a very like clean look going forward in the future. Like I think everything will have a very, you know, fun vibe. Yeah, Jess, I thought it was a good point too. Yeah. Oh, Joe said, still waiting for the CTA contest animation. I would say hold your breath on that. You'll never get it. I'm kidding. Jess said, Joe, I wouldn't... Yep, me and Jess were on the same page. Jess said, I read it and it's a good read for spooky season. I don't want to be afraid though. Oh, Tay, you're getting a lot of love in the chat. So Adagong said awesome. Joe said awesome. Like everybody is just like so supportive here. And I feel like that's what this community is all about. I'll definitely put a link in the description to Tay Tay's book so that we can make sure that we're all here to support her, to give her all of the love and everything. Oh man, I'm getting hiccups. So that's what's been going on. We kind of looked a little bit at the truth of the situation. And I'll just say I loved getting to get another viewpoint. I never really have been a Redditor or whatever, but I thought like, wow, these are like some insightful comments. And so who knows, maybe we'll be looking at Reddit again in the future for some other things. The truth about something else as well. Maybe we need to look up the truth about tapas and find out what's actually going on there. So a quick creator shout out to... I'm sorry, this like threw me off because I specifically like did an edit to this image to make sure that we could easily see the name of the series, but I guess it's too late and I failed there. Adagon said, is Reddit like the secret source of confidential information? Low key, it kind of is. Sometimes you have to be wary and take a lot of stuff with a grain of salt, but people will post anonymously on there so that they don't get in trouble. So if you're not a Redditor, Adagon, I would say look it up. Definitely check out the links and start there if you want some interesting like reads. All right, so the series is Sain Kastel and it's by the creator Oscar Castillo. Hope I'm saying the name right. But definitely check out the series. It looks super fun. And I really like the art style. Like, it's giving me all the vibes. So Sain's hometown is under siege by a sinister group. But Sain can't be bothered with that. He just needs to finish his senior year so he can move back to the US to be with his cute American boyfriend. The problem? The sinister group is secretly looking for people like Sain. What's going on? And it's a fantasy drama, which is very interesting. Like when I first saw it, I thought that it was maybe a romance, but I was like, oh, it's in a different genre. What's going on here? Oh, Joe had a question. By the way, question. If we want to put our comic on Instagram, would you think ideally black and white or colored pages? Sorry, my grammar's kind of messed up. Joe, I'm not sure. I feel like it depends on what, like Instagram is very visual. So I feel like whatever your series looks the best in or what would be the most eye-catching. Obviously color's eye-catching, but I feel like there's tons of like black and white stuff that can be eye-catching depending on how you do it. And I would also say, I guess it depends too. Are you just using it to like advertise bits and pieces of the comic? Or are you trying to like actually like tell the story on Instagram, like scroll through? What sort of story would you offer up if you could, if approached. Oh, Lord, are we doing Q&A stuff? Guys, I was about to end the stream. Like, okay, I will answer a few questions and then I will leave. I just love talking to you guys. Okay, so if I was approached, there are a few short story ideas that I have on Patreon that I've kind of like outlined a little bit. So let me pull up one of those because that's definitely something that I would definitely offer up to Webtoons. So give me like 2 seconds. Also, check out our Patreon. We've got a lot of cool stuff on there. And we're becoming more active, so I just want to throw all of that out there to you guys, which means that there will be more stuff coming on Patreon and on YouTube. Which, Lord, where are the stories at? Oh, okay. There's one. Oh, okay. So short 3 to 5 page horror comic. Okay, Joe, I feel like that could work. I feel like for a horror comic, if you did like black and white and then a color, you know, that could be really eye-catching to draw people in. Just said my friend Yuning does a black and white comic on Instagram, and I think it does decently, but the style is pretty different, so that helps it to be more eye-catching, I think. Her comic kind of reminds me of chalkboard drawings. Ooh, well, Jess, if, I don't know if you and Joe are friends outside of this, but if you are, like, maybe you can, like, send him one of Yuning's, posts so he can check it out. I was going to go back to the questions page, but I'm just going to leave it on the creator thing to give the creator more of a shout out. Okay. So, to answer your question, Adagon, I think one of the stories I would offer up to Webtoons would actually be a drama story. And basically the premise of this is 2 characters. One character is an aspiring baseball player. They're in high school. He wants to go pro and he's really pursuing that hardcore. He's like doing his best to be like the perfect student, the perfect son, the perfect like everything. Like he's Mr. Perfect, Mr. Popular. And then there's another character who's harboring like a really big secret. She's been like really close friends with this character and she is just like there to support. She's not like friends with anybody. Like she's rarely at school and whatnot, but he's always felt like very calmed by her. He's always felt like very, I don't want to say affectionate, but he's always felt strongly about this individual. And I don't think like the character knows what the feelings are exactly. But basically, the story is more or less the female character is going to send him like multiple texts or emails, and like she never sends them, and so there are a bunch of drafts of them, and then she ends up dying, and so the story ends up being about like text messages that she never sent or emails that she never sent, that sort of thing. And so he finds the emails and he finds out that she was like in love with him and all of this stuff, and that she didn't ever want to burden him or ever want to burden anybody with the fact that she had a like sickness and whatnot. And so that would be like the main premise of the story. So it would be kind of like, you know, dealing with the grief of everything, dealing with losing a friend, dealing with never having that sort of love, that sort of thing. So that would be one of the stories I would definitely pitch to Webtoons. I feel like it would be super fun, and I really like, I feel like emotional writing is kind of where I shine, which is really hard for me to translate to Webtoons. So I would need somebody to help me. I'd be like, how can I get all of this thought dialogue into a few panels? So that was kind of the issue with Frostbite. Frostbite had a lot of like internal dialogue and it was like pretty dialogue heavy, and I just could not translate it well. So that was a little glimpse for you. I don't know if it sounds amazing to you or anything. I thought it was a fun idea, and I definitely feel like it would be something that would only be like a few episodes, like 10 to 12 episodes max. Let's see. Oh, Jess, we know you love black and white horror. Oh, Jess, by the way, I watched Sabrina. I don't remember if I told you this or not, and I didn't like the ending. I didn't understand. Like, why? Why? That's all I have to say is just why. Oh, and Jess, thank you for volunteering to send the post to Joe. We really appreciate you. All right, so are there any more questions? If not, I will go ahead and start wrapping up the stream. I just want to say thank you to all of you guys for hanging out with me. I know this was a bit of a longer stream. I generally don't want them to be this long, but it is what it is. Like, it turned into a 2-hour stream. That's deranged. That's deranged. But we had a lot to go through. Just, we did talk about this. The ending is horrible, and I feel like if they hired you, they need to hire you to rewrite the last episode. Maybe the last season. I don't know. I feel like the last season was an interesting concept. It just didn't pan out. All right, so thanks so much for coming, you guys. I'm going to enter into my outro mode, and I will catch you all for our next stream. So if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, leave us a like, a comment, and most definitely ring the bell. A huge thank you and shout out to our patrons. If you'd like to support us while getting some extra content we don't post on Instagram or YouTube, then head on over and check out our Patreon. Be sure to follow us on all our social media, link in the description. We're particularly active on Instagram, so if you want to chat with us, then feel free to pop on by. All right, I'll catch you in the next video. Yes.